2 weeks left until the playoffs in the summer 23 season. And week 6 had some matchups we were looking forward to until we got to the court in Johnston and realized the Duyes boys were missing some people. And, the halfway crooks kind of fell behind early. And our closest game was our nightcap, the Rhode Island Warriors and the Ice Trays, which I, going in, guys, did say I thought it could be frisky, and that was our closest game of week 6. Nobody agreed. I got looks from the analysts, but we'll hear from them shortly on the week 6 post-game show. We'll break down everything from week 6. We'll try to look ahead to the playoffs a little bit as they are 2 games away, so we can kind of start to do some tiebreaker business. If this team's win and this team loses and then wins in week 8, we'll figure all that out for you guys. I'm Joey. Let's go down the list really quick. Zach, Simon, Sydney, Owen, Ian, Ryan. All right. It's, again, much easier on Zoom when I can cheat and their names are on the screen. We'll be testing that out, in person after the finals. We'll see how good I get after, 10 weeks of saying everybody's name. But we're going to recap week 6 here, and then we will get to some all-star type things, some playoff type things, and maybe some all-star sleepers. Just to kind of sum that up for everybody really quick, our analysts will all get a ballot week 8, which they can hand in anytime during week 8. So it is from the regular season. Every team will get 1 all-star, and then there will be 6 extra spots for teams to have additional all-stars. So we'll kind of start to preview some of that in a second. There will be an all-star draft. We'll have all-star night at the end of August with a dunk contest and 3-point contest, which players get voted into, not by me. So leave me alone. Bribe the other people you guys see on this Zoom and not me. But guys, before we get to All-Star and the playoffs and all that fun stuff, week 6, again, no game within single digits. And we had the game breakers and halfway crooks battling it out until the 4th. And I have some things to say about that one. Only good things about the game breakers, who I think showed, not that they're undefeated, not that they didn't already show things, but I'll get to some things that I liked from them as an innocent bystander, taking out my personal opinion from that one. But let's get to that nightcap. 2 teams that, we probably should talk about a little more in the Rhode Island Warriors and the Ice Trays, and a game that, was a 9-point game. The Rhode Island Warriors do win, get to 5-1, and are now 3rd in the standings because of the tiebreaker with Lob City when they lost to them in week 3, I believe. But still 5-1, great record, and they're starting to kind of cement that top 4 seed, which a lot of you guys think they deserve. But we'll go in order on my screen here. Again, 72-63 for the Warriors, and Zach first. We'll put him right on the spot. But that one, I know we were all kind of there hanging out. You can go anywhere you want first, but I eventually do want to talk about the Ice Trays, who do have 2 wins, I believe, and have a big game next week, which will have some playoff seeding implications, which would be my favorite word of the podcast. But Zach, even the Rhode Island Warriors, we've talked about how they're playing better. They are one of those complete teams, and we have an article on them this week. But what'd you see from them, Zach, in week 6?
I noticed that even though the Ice Trays are close, never really felt threatened. The game stayed right around 10 points. Every time the Ice Trays would make a run, the Warriors responded. They never really let it get too close. And then in the end, on that Charles Alexander dunk late, you, me, and Owen were all like, okay, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and the play you're talking about, which we'll see, I'm sure, on some of the highlights, the Ice Trays were always trying to get it back, and they had it to, I believe, 7. And the Warriors missed with about 2:30 or 3 minutes left. And it was like a tip. And then the Warriors missed another layup. And it was just Charles Alexander kind of summing up that game. We're just not giving up on a play. Then I think it was an and one or a big dunk, at least put them back up 9. And kind of at that point, that was a huge swing as well in that game, which is kind of why we were like, all right, that kind of sums it up and probably puts an end to this one. Simon, I'll give you the Ice Trays task, which isn't an impossible task, but Nick Lemoyne leading the way with 21, Adae Bright 13, and the Milkman with 12, one of my favorite nicknames, as you guys know by now, Justin Titsworth. But all 3s for him, and that's kind of been his role on that team. I think the Ice Trays, it's vastly different from what we saw even before the 4th of July break from them. So they're playing better at the right time. But Simon, the Ice Trays, what'd you see, and maybe what were they missing to kind of take that next step and push the Warriors, in this one?
I think the Ice Trays chemistry looks a lot better than it did in the beginning of the season. And especially Nick Lemoyne. He looks a lot more confident too as a leader of the team, putting up 21 and 16 rebounds. I think his him being on the court is very important for the Ice Trays. But I think that they missed a little bit in trying to close out the game. They let the Warriors get a big lead in the fourth quarter, which ended up losing them the game. I think that if they were able to stay with the Warriors throughout the game and keep it close, then they would have had a better chance of winning.
And even there, before we get to Sydney on wherever she wants to go, but it was never really, I mean, they had the Warriors had a lead, and sure, it got double digits, but it was never out of control. It was a double digit lead, but never, in my opinion, like, all right, this is a wrap. Sydney, as we kind of get to the Warriors here on the screen, what stands out to you about them? And I mean, 5-1 is impressive, and they have a big game in a few weeks against the Game Breakers. But despite that, they're going to be a team to be reckoned with in the playoffs.
I think for them, only shooting 24% for threes and still being able to take that win shows the depth they have and getting to the rim and getting those dunks off, where they're still making those threes, but it's not their whole game. And so they have something that they can fall back on when their accuracy isn't like what they would like.
I only smile because, like I said in person, guys, if they shot 24% in week one, it'd be a different story, but no problem. I'm over that clearly. Owen, anywhere in this one, I'll kind of take the stats off of here. But before I do, Charles Alexander with 27 and 17, 9 offensive rebounds. And a lot of those were like multi-rebound possessions, just keeping the play alive. And I think it was at the end of one of the quarters, he went like the length of the floor and like laid it in. It wasn't even like a dunk because he was stretching so far. It was like the amount of Giannis, I think is fair for that one play. And I'm not comparing anyone to Giannis Antetokounmpo, but 4 seconds left, the dude went the length of the court and had his imprint all over this game, Owen.
I'm sure Charles wouldn't mind a comparison to Giannis, but yeah, he played great this week. He does it every week, week in and week out. He always plays great, but I just wanted to mention the Ice Trays and more specifically Terrence Gallo. For all the teams out there, you got to box that guy out. All his dunks are all putbacks. And I just looked, he's a 2-time dunk contest champion for a reason. Put a body on him, box him out, and then you might have a chance to just run away with the game. But he kept it close, although he only had 8, just his presence was felt.
Yeah, I think him and Adae Bright, former teammates on the Boston Blazers from back in the day, shout out to that team. But yeah, and it's funny in all the highlights, which if you're watching the 2-minute drill, if you go back and watch the live stream on our YouTube page, watch a possession. And it's really funny because we know he can jump, Terrence Gallo, right? And I was watching all the clips back today. And I mean, sometimes I knew it was coming where he's going to tip it in, right? But it's like you can watch him almost like circling around and the perimeter and taking like little steps trying to time the shot so that he can be there for those types of plays, which is just, shout out Terrence, the defending 2-time slam dunk champion. So we will see him again in it this year. That's how it works. Ian, this one. And so we can even look ahead a little bit. The Rhode Island Warriors 5-1, and that puts the Ice Trays at 2-4, and the Ice Trays take on the Air Mambas next week in a rematch, which will be my transition in a second as we get to kind of that game. But go wherever you like, Ian. I know we have Ian and Ryan left, but this was a big game, I think, for both teams in week 6, Ian.
Yeah, although the Ice Trays lost, I think this game definitely might have built some momentum going forward. I think the way they played was excellent despite the loss. And on the other hand, I think the Warriors, I wouldn't say predictable, but I think some other teams are figuring out like a defensive scheme on how to keep up with them, because they like to drive straight down the paint, get those fouls, and just put it up like in the rim in the paint. And they're definitely gonna have to improve on the 3-point percentages. But I think both teams will be a threat come later in the playoffs. So we'll see.
Yeah, Ryan, you can jump in, and then I'm going to preview week 7 and 8 for these teams. But go ahead, Ryan. I know a lot on this game, but again, it's all you. Go ahead.
Yeah, going into this one, I actually did agree with you where I felt it was going to be close because every week I've seen the Warriors kind of play down to their competition. There's been a lot of games that are pretty close that you look at the talent on their team as opposed to others, and you feel like they should win it by 30, 40 points like we see some other teams in the league do, which is a cause for concern for the playoffs, but also could be kind of a scary sight because the team isn't like fully focused and with full attention to detail, and they're still 5-1. So if they're fully focused with full intensity in the playoffs, they could run it away with this thing.
Yeah, and I'll do a full preview kind of after we get through all the games, but quickly, the Warriors have left Ball Don't Lie next week, and then the game breakers, like I talked about. So 6-2 is very much in play, depending on what happens with Lob City. Even if Lob City was to lose, again, they don't have, Lob City does have the tiebreaker there. So they're looking at a 3 seed, which would the Warriors most likely, which would then put them on the same side as Lob City for a semifinal matchup to kind of avenge that week 3 5-point loss, where they were very much in that game. And I think it's crazy because size-wise, it doesn't make sense, right? Like Lob City being bigger, and I think they were missing some guys in that week 3 game, so it'll be very interesting how that rematch happens if it does, because Lob City's size, again, should kind of be the difference in that one if everyone's playing well. But again, just something to kind of look ahead to. In the Ice Trays at 2-4, they find themselves quickly tied for 5th with the Douillet's boys, but the Douillet's boys did beat the Ice Trays, so that puts the Ice Trays at 6. And we'll kind of use this as a transition to get to the Air Mambas and Ball Don't Lie, because it's the Air Mambas at 1-5, but with a win next week, the Air Mambas beating the Ice Trays, both teams would find themselves at 2-5. They would have split their regular season matchup. So that's kind of what the Air Mambas have ahead after a week 6 win over Ball Don't Lie. And I'm not even going to pretend I was over there because I was busy losing for the 2nd week in a row, and it happens. But I know we did have, we're going to go back to Ian. We'll backtrack it for that court 3 game at 8 o'clock. Ball Don't Lie and the Air Mambas, both teams coming in looking for their first win. And again, that sets up the Air Mambas now to kind of get up to that 6. And if crazier things have happened, if they can kind of pull out some wins up to 5, which would just be unthinkable, 2 weeks ago. And not that they don't have the talent to do that, but where they were in the standings 2-3 weeks ago compared to where they could be next week is something. But they do take care of, as we kind of focus on week 6, they take care of Ball Don't Lie 67-44. Sorry, I wanted to give you the score. So a 20+ point win, Ian, and we're going to get to the box score in a second. But what did the Air Mambas do maybe differently in week 6 that they weren't able to do in the first couple weeks of the season?
Yeah, honestly, I think just watching them, they were just like, they just had more fun. They were more enthusiastic. They really went out there and just like did what they felt comfortable with. And they really had like a good defensive presence, although it may not show up on the steals and blocks, but they really just went out there, played physical, played hard. And once they had the lead, they didn't let go of it. So.
Yeah, and we'll get over to Sydney next. So kind of focusing on this one, Mario Valerio with 22, Mark DaCosta with 16, and Anthony Ramsey with 15. No Olajide Roland from the way it looks on the box score. So even without one of their better players that we talk about, Sydney, the Air Mamba, is able to get the win.
Yeah, and kind of going off of what Ian was saying, they were having fun out there. They also had some fans in the audience that definitely pumped them up a little. They were getting them riled up, and even like they were kind of trash talking the other team. So maybe they got into Ball Don't Lie's head a little bit. And so maybe the audience played a little factor in there, but they were definitely with full force right there in that game. And they were really looking for that first win that they needed.
All right. And Simon, as we kind of get to Ball Don't Lie a little bit, we'll throw up some stats here, but their leading scorer with 12 points, 30% shooting and 9% from 3. So like we've talked about with Ball Don't Lie, not enough threes, but if you're only going to make 2, it's not going to matter how many you take necessarily. But even for Ball Don't Lie quickly and kind of coming into this one, so it is the Air Mambas crowd is what I'm hearing, which is always it's like 2 weeks in a row they've packed the place, which makes it fun, and it definitely adds. I think it helps their team for sure. So Simon, yeah, in this one on court 3, Ball Don't Lie and the Air Mambas. Go ahead.
I think the injury to Nick Pachia early in the game really was a momentum killer for Ball Don't Lie. They were hanging in there for the first and second quarter, and once he got injured, and I feel like the team started to not fall apart a little bit, but I think their energy kind of shifted into a worse way where it kind of made them scared a little bit, and they let a lot of threes happen from the Air Mambas, which I think they need to get better on defense, along with their shot selection too, shooting just 9% from 3.
Yeah, and so we're going to kind of go a little more quickly through these games, but Ball Don't Lie 0-6. Like we've talked about, the Air Mambas get their first win now, 1-5, and next week they get the Ice Trays in a rematch. We have our rematch week in week 7. So we kind of get to have something to go off of when we talk about these week 7 games. And then it is the Air Mambas taking on Lob City in week 8. So maybe climbing up to that 5 seed's going to be a tall task against a Lob City team in week 8. But again, that 6 seed, especially, beat the Ice Trays and then see what happens where the Ice Trays have the halfway crooks in week 8. And so crazier things have happened, but it would come down to a tiebreaker, right? So that they're fighting for that 6 seed in week 7. And that's kind of what was at stake in week 6 for those two teams. Let's go to that other game at 8 o'clock, which was one of the more anticipated ones coming in, the halfway crooks and the game breakers. It is the game breakers by 21, but really just a huge fourth quarter for them. And I'll kind of go into more specifics in that one in a second from some of the things I've seen, but I'm interested because I was heavily involved. We'll go to Ryan first this time. And again, we'll backtrack it, but it is the game breakers pulling away in the fourth and showing things that I think are very promising as we kind of get into the playoff stretch, Ryan.
Yeah, everyone was looking forward to this game because especially halfway crooks proved themselves last week. Only 1 point loss to Lob City proved that they're not like a 3-3 team. Like they're much better than what their record shows. But yeah, that fourth quarter, the game breakers dictate the pace of play. And in this league, if you can dictate the pace of play, you're probably going to win the game. And that's what they did. They were playing faster. They were able to get their fast break dunks, their pull-up threes. And the halfway crooks were playing from behind and not in a good way. They were rushing things. They weren't getting getting good baskets or any open looks. And I feel like they weren't feeding Devon Pina down low as much as they should have, especially down the stretch, because the game breakers just don't have a lot of size, whereas the halfway crooks did have an advantage there. And I think that was the death of them in that fourth quarter.
PJ, we did it. It took 6 weeks, but we have a Devon Pina shout out from an analyst who was not here last year. It's on. The nicknames are sticking. I love it. Yeah. Devon Pina played great. We'll get to some stats in a second. We'll go to Zach and I'll shift down on the screen you guys are looking at. But Zach, even more about the game breakers, because Ryan did a really good job kind of summing it up for both teams. Focus on the game breakers who do improve to 6-0 and were challenged, but kind of went to another level in that fourth quarter. And that's what I'll touch on in a second. But Zach, what'd you see, the game breakers do to build that lead?
I think a big part of it was chemistry. Gian Abadesian and Joseph Secator and David DePino were all hitting clutch shots. They weren't yelling at each other. They weren't arguing. They were working together. And I think that's what helped them pull away.
And Owen, as we kind of look at here, so 3 players with 15 points, but only 5 made threes for the halfway crooks. And I believe I already checked the rebounding. Yeah, so a 36-28 rebounding edge. I think that needed to be double figures. I think some of the long rebounds and loose balls. And the big thing for me, which I'm probably taking Owen's stuff here, is the turnovers, 16-7. And I think that kind of mounted on itself in that fourth quarter as well. But Owen, I'll go back up to the game breaker stats in a second. Or right now, actually, Gian Abadesian, 34 points and 8 made threes. So for 2 years in a row, Gian's favorite color is purple. Joe Secator, 26 points, 4 made threes. And I really think 15 threes for this team was playing into some of the shots that they were getting and they were hitting, especially in that first half, and never really allowed the crooks to build a lead, Owen.
Yeah, that whole game was very entertaining. Me and Ryan were having a blast at the scorers table just watching it. And I think in that second half, it got really close. In that third quarter, it was just back and forth. There was a bunch of lead changes, a bunch of ties. And then in the fourth quarter, I think the main difference is the game breakers said, we don't need to score 1 million. We just got to stop them from scoring 1 million. And they just buckled down on the defensive end. And like you said, force those turnovers. And when the other team can't score, it's pretty easy to win.
Yeah, and I think a big part of the game breakers, before I kind of get to something Joe Secator said in his interview, when the game breakers are stopping or getting stops, that's great. And that's like step one. They're more dangerous and it's almost more important for them, just from how they've played all year, to turn those stops into the easiest of baskets on the other end, right? And so it almost is a chain reaction where when they turn up their defense like they did, and that's the point I wanted to make, is I think when they turn up their defense, it leads to very, very high percentage shots, as in dunks, if not uncontested, nearly uncontested, because of how good and fast they are. Joe Secatore saying, in his interview, they're going to have some battles. So I think they're ready for it. And they know it's not going to be necessarily easy, but if they play the way they did, they'll come out on top. And that's a quote. And I think a big part of that was kind of taking a lot of those shots, facing the zone in the first half, and being almost happy to see a man-to-man defense shift in that second half. And just based on personnel, that was something the Crooks tried. And I think the Game Breakers took advantage. But the key there that I saw in that third quarter and the fourth quarter way more was that defensive intensity picked up. A team that isn't as big as the Halfway Crooks, and it's not always about size. If you're not going to be as big, pressuring the ball and getting turnovers and picking up the defensive intensity, stripping the ball down low a ton more in the second half than in the first half, not letting Devin Devampina and Jeff Winchell get comfortable in the post is how to counter that size. And they did a great job, and they picked it up and blew it open in the fourth quarter. So enough from me. That puts the Halfway Crooks at 3-3, like you talked about, in fourth, and almost, I can say it, unable to get to that 3 seed, because even if the Warriors were to lose out and the Crooks were to win, the Warriors or Lob City would have that head-to-head tiebreaker over the Halfway Crooks. So the Crooks are 4 at best, which puts them in a 4-5 matchup against either the Douillet's boys or the Ice Trays in the first round. And they take on the Douillet's boys for a second time next week, and maybe a third time 3 weeks from now, which will just be insanity. So that'll be fun to watch. And for the Game Breakers, like we talked about, 6-0, they get Lob City next week in a rematch. And that'll be a really big game because Lob City can catch them with a win next week for that top seed, and that'll change some things as well. And then in week 7, Game Breakers and Rhode Island Warriors, like we talked about. And so 2 big games for the Game Breakers to remain undefeated and continue, not that they have to prove things, but to continue to prove some things. Before we get to our all-star conversation that we teased in the beginning, the last game, because of some absences from a team, the team we wouldn't expect when talking about players being absent, the Douillet's boys and Lob City. It is Lob City 122-57. No Brian Yars, no Des Williams, and it was noticed in that one. So not even really going to go down the line. We're just going to open it up to you guys. Anybody that has a comment on this one can definitely jump in. Games like this, there's obviously things you can take away from it, that Lob City is very good. They play well in transition, and they're the defending champs for a reason. It's not to say the Douillet's boys aren't good when any team is missing some of its best players, probably besides Lob City or the Game Breakers. They can probably figure out a way in the regular season to hang around and still compete because they're so deep. It doesn't tell me a lot about the Douillet's boys, even though they now find themselves at 2-4, looking up at a lot of teams in the playoffs. So anybody can jump in on this one and kind of, even we can focus on Lob City a little bit, because taking care of business is an understatement for them to kick off week 6.
Yeah, they took care of business throughout the entire game. And they're called Lob City to throw a bunch of lobs, but they're also hitting a lot of threes this game. Although the box score says they were only 8 for 23, it felt like some of those last few ones were just at the end of the game, just shooting it for fun. They shot pretty efficiently throughout the game, 73%. And when you shoot that efficient, it's really hard to lose.
Yeah, and with their size advantage, you can see there Colin Burns at 28. So his return, and that's a ideal situation to come back for a player like Colin Burns to kind of get free run, get back in the rhythm, get some shots up. Didn't even take a 3, so wasn't even shooting, and working that part out because he can shoot it if he needs to. Jose Mercado, 21, Nuri, 18, Justin Tabas, 17, Cody Crawford, 14, Carl Lee, 14. And we saw Greg Holt for the second time this season in a lesser role. And as they made sure to mention in their interview, Victor Cashew Jr. in the building. So he is approaching being able to play in the playoffs. So they will have their full team ready, because you have to play in 3 games or be at 3 games, because Victor could have easily checked in and followed somebody and left. So just being there counts as a games played because he is hurt. Douillet's boys, Garen led the way with 16. So we love to see that. Kyle Wolf, 12, and everybody else in single digits. Any other notes on this one from anybody else?
What I noticed was the Lob City defense was absolutely insane in this game. They had 8 blocks, 15 steals, and forced 23 turnovers. Like it was domination.
Sydney?
UVA's boys, they came in with a plan. They tried to slow down the pace and work for their shots, but it just wasn't enough. Like Zach said, those 23 turnovers, Lob City did not let up. They had like a full court press going at one point, even though they were up by so much. They just kept that pressure on and wasn't giving UVA boys any breaks.
Yeah, the only one that I couldn't see on my screen. Ian, I'm going to put you on the spot. What do you got from this one?
Yeah, hopefully the Duge boys can bounce back, maybe hand the Crooks their 3rd loss in a row. So I'll be looking forward to that game.
That was an unnecessary shot. All right, I'm over Ian. All right, he's cut off for now. All right, yeah. Hey, that's upcoming in week 7. We can list off those games really quick, and we'll do some all-star previews. But Lob City and the Game Breakers kick it off. So no better way to start a week than with our top 2 teams, or 2 of the top 3 teams in the standings. At 7 o'clock, Duyer's Boys and Crooks at 8. Air Mambas and Ice Trays get that rematch to kind of jockey for some playoff seeding, which matchups are going to matter. So we'll see about that. And then to cap it off, Ball Don't Lie and the RI Warriors will play for a second time, and we'll see if there is any eventfulness in week 7 before we get to the final week of the season. And just to kind of go over the standings, we already did pretty much. I think I'm good on that. Game Breakers lead it. Lob City and the Warriors tied at 5-1. The halfway Crooks alone at 4th and 3-3 right now, but do take on the Duyer's Boys next week again, who are at 2-4 and tied with the Ice Trays. Air Mambas 1-5. Ball Don't Lie 0-6. All right, enough of week 6. As we get ready for the playoffs and All-Star Night, like I talked about, our All-Star Night, I didn't say this yet, presented by Cello's Hometown Bar and Grill. So that's going to be awesome. We have a sponsor for that. Our draft is sponsored, and the All-Star MVP, Slam Dunk Contest winner, and 3-point contest winner will be getting gift cards to Cello's, in addition to all of the great things that come with winning one of those contests. So something to play for in the All-Star game, even though it's a exhibition, as well as the 3-point and dunk contest. Guys, every team gets an All-Star. Okay, we're going to go down the list here to kind of wrap up our post-game show this week. Every team gets an All-Star. Some teams will have multiple. Before we get to teams or what teams you think will have multiple All-Stars, I want a player from everybody that you think other people aren't expecting to get as many All-Star votes as they will. So I'm basically saying an All-Star sleeper. I think we can rattle off a list of players that we expect to be All-Stars. Some of the players we talk about a lot and are on top of their team's respective box scores, leading the way on the court, and are in the running for MVP and Offensive Player of the Year and those type of awards. But we'll just go in order on my screen again. So we'll start with Zach. And Ian is last for his crook slander. Zach, what player are you going to vote for? Because you guys do all get a vote, that you think people will be surprised to see voted for when we don't announce the ballots, but we do see who makes an All-Star. But who's going to get votes that you think will surprise people, Zach?
I think David DePina of the Game Breakers will. He never starts the game, or he never shows up at the beginning of the game, but when he does come in, he's electric. And I think part of that is he's elevated by the rest of his team. He's versatile. He's good down low. He's good on the 3-point range. Does a little bit of everything.
I love it. I might as well beat the joke into the ground since I'm skipping over Ian. It's your chance to pick a halfway Crooks player and get back in the good graces, or don't, and you get to live your own fate. Ryan, what player do you think is an All-Star sleeper this year?
I've sung the praise of this guy before, but Hachi Amini. I'm a big believer in momentum, a big believer in energy. This guy averages 15, 6, and 5. He's probably the best defensive guard in the entire league. We saw in this last game, he had like 3 steals on 3 straight possessions. He is such a vital piece of that team. And I mean, they'd be a great team without him. Gian and Joe Segator are just that good, but he's one of those great glue guys that I think elevates them to be at the level that they're at. And that's why I think he should be an All-Star.
Yeah, and played in the game last year. I should have pulled that box score quick. I scrambled to check because I'm very sure, and I can obviously do it while I'm talking now. It was Jaron Thomas, who is not in the league anymore, but did win All-Star MVP last year. And if I remember correctly, part of that was because Hachi was like a fill-in. And so he went off, and I'm going to pull his all-star numbers really quick. Hold on one second. Yep. And the reason his stats aren't even up here is because he wasn't an all-star and like was there and we needed some people, and he jumped in and nearly won all-star game MVP. So even in a game like that, which we'll make some predictions for all-star game MVP, which is a different conversation of who's going to kind of take it too seriously. But Hachi's a great pick and definitely deserving this year. Sydney, who you got?
My pick is Cody Crawford for Lob City. I think if he can shoot really accurately from his 3-point shooting, he can be a threat on that court and definitely step up.
A multi-time all-star for Lob City for sure in Cody Crawford, and is shooting it better. He had some slump years, which he will admit, but just from watching the games is definitely shooting it better than he has in recent history. Owen, who's your all-star sleeper? And shout out Owen for the topic idea. Yeah, thanks. Making my job even easier. Owen, who you got?
Appreciate it. I would say probably I'm going to butcher his name. Aiden Duos from the RI Warriors. I tried. I'm sorry. He's great on defense. He throws down some crazy dunks in an all-star game format. That's kind of what you want. And then when it gets down to where things get serious and everybody's playing defense, he's a great defender too. So I would love to see him in there.
Yeah, and kind of leading into that conversation, the Rhode Island Warriors will more than likely have multiple all-stars. It kind of depends on who they will be. And I've been going Dozos, so I think that's kind of, so you did well. You did well with the name, but definitely will be one of my picks. Not that I seriously get a pick, I don't, but will be someone I would like to see in the dunk contest. Him, Joe Secator, Terrence Gallo. I'm watching. I'm in. This is all right. We can kind of build out this 5 or 6 guy rotation there for the dunk contest and put on a show. Simon, who's your all-star sleeper that you'll be voting for as of today?
I'm agreeing with Ryan. I'm going Hachi Amini. I think that since Gian Evedizion and Joseph Secator are the two main guys in that team, he gets overlooked sometimes. I think that, like Ryan said, he's probably the best defensive guard in the league. And Ryan, you're stealing my thunder, man. But I don't know. I think that Hachi is just the guy, and he's just a true basketball player, in my opinion. And he definitely deserves to be on an all-star team.
Yeah, and was on the cusp last year. And then, like I said, played, and we already talked about that. But has been consistently balling out in the legacy leagues. All right, Ian, it's your time. Who you got?
All right, Ryan and Simon also said Hachi. I was going to say him too, but also show some love to Dominique Langston on the halfway crooks. They got a very well-balanced team, so sometimes their players might get overlooked, but, I mean, he's second in the league in steals per game with 2.2, and he's averaging 14 points, and he's a very efficient 14 points per game. So he's a big part of their defensive end. I know they also have one of the reigning defensive players of the year, so I think Dominique Langston should definitely get a vote.
Just knows how to get back that's the perfect way to end it. What a roller coaster of emotions here on the post-game show. Ian was in the doghouse, and then, guys, take notes. That's how you do it. That's how you put together some entertaining shows. That's the post-game show. What I will do is quickly, and I had a feel-good moment. I'm sorry. What team do you think will have the most all-stars? And we can just kind of jump in. You guys can throw stuff out and I'll fight over who wants to talk first, but it's not as easy as you'd think, because people are kind of going to like share votes and then take each other out. And so anybody can just jump in really quick before we get out of here. What team do you think will have the most all-stars? And it almost comes down to, and then I'll be quiet, like clear all-stars, because then they'll get the votes and that will propel them against people who are maybe sharing votes. Like, not that Marvin, just one example, Marvin Dowdell and Aiden Dozos, like, not that they're both not deserving, but if Owen has Aiden and then Sydney has Marvin, like that kind of splits it, and we will still have a good all-star bunch and it'll be the correct group of people. But things like that can detract from getting people over the limit you would need to be an all-star. So what team is in your guys' head as who would have the most?
I think for sure the Game Breakers. If you look at it 3 people just said Hachi, and you're crazy to think Gian and Joe are not going to be all-stars. So there's 3 right there. And I think that's pretty much a no-brainer.
And we had a David DePina mention. And so that could be a 4th. So I think the limit would be 3 in that scenario. So is another team going to be able to get to 4, which is even just hard math-wise from each team needing an all-star and then voting the others. Any other, is that the consensus? That's it. That's what we're doing, which is fair. Undefeated team and they're loaded.
I think Lob City could have 3, maybe 4. I mean, Jose is going to be one of them, but I mean, you can argue Colin Burns, Nuri Muhammad, Cody Crawford, and even Carl Lee, despite he's only played 4 games, and Colin Burns only played 3. But I mean, those are all debatable. So we'll see how the votes go.
Yeah, for all-star, there's no minimum games played limit. It's just there's no restrictions on the awards. You have to play a certain amount of games, and on playoff qualification, you do have to appear in 3. All right. That's a good show. We're about a half hour in. Week 7 coming up. You can watch all the action live on YouTube. We are now live on Facebook. So, of course, I delay the most important information till the end of the show. Facebook live stream looked great. Scoreboard was there. I was able to then get that game on YouTube. So now all 4 games are eventually up on our YouTube page to watch after, but they are all streamed live either on YouTube or our Facebook page, youtube.com/Legacy Leagues for the crew. I'm Joey. 2 weeks left to the playoffs, and should be some good games, especially we got some game breakers action the next 2 weeks. We got the Crooks in some battles. We got some playoff position to make up. So that's the post-game show, and thanks for watching.